Hello and welcome everybody. This is Hadil from Bitball, and in this video series, I'll be sharing feature highlights of our new cloud-based estimating software. In this video, I'll show you how to import bid items into Bitball. There are two main reasons why you may want to do this. First, if you already have a bid schedule or a bill of quantity from your client, it will save you a lot of time to simply import this file. The second reason is if you need to export pricing back to that same original file you imported. This may be because your client requires it in a specific format, or maybe you have a standard proposal template that you'd like to use. Let's see two examples with the two most common formats we see: Excel and PDF. Here I have a blank estimate that I've already created. I'll click on the estimate, then click Import. The import procedure has three main steps. First, selecting the source file. Second, mapping the column headers. And third, mapping the categories. First, we'll go ahead and select the source. We're choosing an Excel file in this first example. Second, we'll map the column headers. Here we need to enter the text that appears in our Excel file that maps to the headers for each of these columns. I'm just going to type what those headers are within the file that I've selected: item, item description, unit, and quantity. The page delimiter is optional if you'd like the system to assign page numbers to your items. The page delimiter text is the text that separates items in different pages in the Excel file. In my file, there are two page delimiters, carried to summary and carried to grand summary. I also have the rate and amount columns. These are only needed if you'd like to export pricing back to the same file. Now let's take a look at this file to see where we got all these text strings from. We can see here that the headers for the columns that have data that we want to import match the text that we entered in Bitball: item, item description, unit, quantity, rate, and amount. Any columns in the file that don't match a column that we've specified will just be ignored. The next step in the import process is mapping the categories. In this particular file, we have items in different sheets that are grouped under different titles: Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, all the way to Part 9. We call these categories. Now, when we create an estimate in Bitball, we can choose to either have a flat list of items without any categories, or we can have up to 4 levels of categories. Sometimes you may have different bills, and within those bills you may have different divisions. So that would be 2 levels. In this example, we only have 1 level of categories. The benefit of entering these categories is that you'll be able to see your items not only in a list view, but also in an expandable tree view structure. So we'll go ahead and enter them. It's important to note that these categories need to match the text in the file that signals the beginning of items within that category. It's also important that these category names are unique. If a category appears somewhere else within the file, then that may lead to items falling under the wrong category. So I'd highly recommend adding some qualifiers to those category names, just to make sure they're unique and don't show up elsewhere within the file. Now that we're done with the 3 steps, selecting the source, mapping the headers, and mapping the categories, we're ready for import. The system is now analyzing the file, importing the items with the respective columns, and placing them within the specified categories. At the end of this process, you'll get a message with the total items imported and a total quantity. The total quantity is used for validation purposes. You can sum up the total of all the values within the quantity column of your file and make sure it matches the total for the imported items. This way, you'll have this extra reassurance that all the items came through. Now we can see our imported items in BidBo. We can filter them by category, and we can view them in a tree view structure. In the tree view, we can see one level of categories, Part 1 to Part 9, with the respective items within each. To keep this video focused on import and export, I'm going to pause the video. I'll estimate a few items in Part 5, and then return to show you the export process. I've now estimated these 5 items at the beginning of Part 5. To export the pricing back to the original file, I'll simply click the arrow next to Export and choose to export back to the original file, either the rate only or both the rate and the amount. My file already has a formula in the amount column, so I'm going to choose to export the rate only. The file downloads in the browser, so we can now open the exported file, and we'll be able to see that the exported rates map to the rates that were estimated in BidBo. We have now completed the process of importing and exporting bid items to Excel. Let's now run through a quick example with a PDF file. The process is very similar. I have a blank estimate here. I'll click Import. I'll select the source file. In this example, we'll choose a PDF. And if we take a look at this PDF file, we'll see that our column header text here is item, description, unit, and QTY. So we'll go ahead and enter those in BidBo. Page delimiters are not needed for PDF, as the system will simply use the PDF pages as a reference for pagination. We can also skip the rate and amount since we can't write back to the PDF file. In this example, we have a flat list of items without any categories. Since we created this estimate with no categories, the import wizard is just going to go straight to importing the items. And we can now see that the import completed with a success message showing the number of items and the total quantity. And we can now see our imported items in BidBo. This wraps up the video of how to import and export bid items with BidBo. Give us your feedback on how you like this feature and what you'd like to see next. And stay tuned for the next video in the series.